The Joe Rogan Experience.
You're just
Like-
used to things that are less comfortable than most, I think.
Perhaps.
Cozy in your
Perhaps.
perspective, you know, but
Yeah.
I get it, yeah.
Yeah.
But this ice hotel, my friend who stayed, I can't remember who told me they stayed in it. They did it one night just to say they did it. They were with their kids, too.
Sounds like David Blaine then.
I think
David
you're right.
Blaine,
I think
classic.
you're right. I think
I know
you're
David.
Right. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, he
For him, an ice hotel is like a normal thing. He's like, he probably just lay there on the ice the whole time just to see if
for
he
days,
could.
just to see if he could.
Yeah.
He's a strange person, right?
Yeah, totally.
Strange and powerful at the same time, like a very unusual human being.
Dude, I met with him years ago now because he was. Did you see his like Real or Magic documentary?
No.
It's really good. I would totally encourage you to watch it. But basically, it's all these like sort of magic tricks, except they aren't actually tricks. They're just like, I'm allowed to curse, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
They're like
hilarious.
these fucked up things that he does that people assume must be magic, but aren't. Like he puts an ice pick through his hand.
I
a bunch
put
of
an
times.
ice pick through his arm.
Oh, well, there you go. That's like the same
Yeah,
kind
he
of like.
made me.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, come on, man. What are we doing here?
Exactly. That. Well, no, exactly. And you're like, you hope it's a
There you
trick,
guys
but it's
are.
like,
Look at you.
dude, exactly.
Ta-da.
Dude, he bought me an iPhone randomly. He,
Did he
it was
really?
one of those classic things. He, I forget. So I met him in New York for this thing for Real Magic because he was talking about maybe doing a climbing thing, and I was totally into teaching him how to climb the outside of a building, basically, because it's one of those things that people would assume there's a trick to it, but in some ways it's actually easier just to learn how to do it well enough that you can just do it rather than do a trick. You know what I mean? Like.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's kind of the whole thing with the ice pick is people assume there must be a trick to it, but you actually just do this crazy thing. You just learn how to do it right.
Right.
And so I went climbing with him a few times, and he like, gave me a tour around town, and we chatted and stuff. I don't know. I was totally into his whole scene. I was like, such mind over matter. I was like, wow, he has got a strong mind for just like making himself do things that other people would think are impossible /
Yeah, it's
too
just
unpleasant.
mostly his mind, mostly the ability to deal with uncomfortable feelings.
Yeah.
Like the ice pick through the arm. Like we had to stop because I hit a nerve, and then we did it again. So it hit a nerve, and then there was one point in time where after we did it, he was concerned that maybe blood was pooling up in a weird way, so he had our medic look at it. So we stopped twice, right? We stopped once, and I put it back in again, and then we go all the way through, and then after it came out, we had to stop again, and then one of our guys had to look at it because it was just bleeding in a weird way. He was worried that it was creating a hematoma, and it could be... I'm like, come on, man.
If you ever watch the show, Real or Magic, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
it's really good. But in one of them, like he puts the ice pick through his hand, and then he pulls it out, and he's like, "Look, see, it's fine." And it's like, and it looks totally fine, like it's not bleeding. It's because your hand is so elastic or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I asked him about it. I was like, "Oh, what's the deal with that?" Because you pull out, it's like, is it a trick? And he's like, "No, you pull it out, and as long as you're holding your hand above your heart, it doesn't bleed for a little bit." He's like, but then when you put your hand down, obviously it bleeds because you have fucking a hole through your hand. I was like, oh Jesus! I was like, that's not much of a trick. That's messed up.
But one of the things that he showed us was there was a guy that was famous back in the day for putting swords through his body. The guy would run
Like the whole way,
the whole way through
like
his
a really
organs.
really narrow sword.
Yeah, a small, but they got progressively larger as
Until he got
more.
progressively deader.
Is that how he died? Do you remember, Jamie?
I feel like that's how it ended up going. He got cocky.
Yes, he got cocky.
Dude.
I think.
Or he
Like,
sneezed halfway through and just like lacerated.
Eventually made his way to like a broadsword size. It was really weird to see though, because there's video of this guy, and there's photos. Video? Is there video?
I got video of it.
There's video. Yeah, this guy slid like right through his organs.
Oh jeez.
Yeah. So look at this.
Oh jeez.
I mean, they just puncture his lung with a fucking sword. I mean, this is not a trick.
This is when you watch action movies and people get shot or stabbed a bunch of times, and you're like, that's so unrealistic. He'd be dead. Like when you watch John Wick, and he gets
Right.
shot like 27 times. You're like, apparently people can actually take quite a beating and just keep going.
Or they can get one small. Look
Oh,
at they're going right through
jeez.
this, right through his fucking.
Dude. Oh
yeah,
my
right through
Jesus
his organs.
Christ.
And look how he just sits there.
And
I
who's
guess-
who's this doctor who's like good enough to poke a sword straight
That's
through him?
not. It's not really a doctor.
Well, but he must be he'd be an incredible. Maybe he works in a deli. Like
What
a
year
really
is
really
this,
good
Jamie?
like meat
Does it
chopper.
say what year this is? Now, what are the things on his forearms, by the way? Oh, now he's going into an X-ray machine to make sure that. So this guy had scars all over his body from the times that he did this.
Dude.
Yeah, yikes. That's a fucking fairly thick blade. Like, definitely bigger than a pencil.
That.
Look, the doctor's examining it. Looks good, and now he's going to eat.
Except it's all going to fall out the hole.
Yeah, it's going to squirt out. That's a hard-looking man. Imagine having a conversation with that dude. I bet he has a very weird way of looking at things.
Dude.
He died at 36. That guy looked.
Oh, well, there you go.
That
He
guy
looked like
didn't
he
look
was 50 already.
36. He looks
Fill
really-
of holes.
I wonder how painful that is. I mean, it's got to be
Painful
pretty
as
painful.
fuck.
Yeah, you would
There's-
assume.
How could it not
Yeah,
be?
yeah,
You know? I mean, fucking piercing your ear is painful.
I've never pierced my ear. Too afraid.
That's hilarious. You're too afraid to
No,
pierce your ear.
Well, no, I just don't want a hole in my ear.
So did he die from that, Jamie?
I'm double checking on
Oh.
how he died. Yeah.
You need like a team of researchers that you're just like pulling up, checking facts.
I
on
know.
this
It's
stuff.
all Jamie one-handed Googling.
Yeah.
Like a
said-
wizard.
He moved to Switzerland and was granted a license to perform without the ability to speak to the public. I don't know. That sounds strange.
A
Yeah.
license to perform without the ability to... Oh, maybe like if you performed, you had to talk to people?
Like they had mimes back then, though. No.
Maybe you had to break character?
I don't know.
Or
It
they
was
get
weird.
mad at you?
But that seems like so. Maybe he couldn't say. He was like, "Ow, it hurts," and they're like, "Shh." I don't know. Like, this is
Well,
so silly to even have a
to
thing
be
like
fair,
that.
the act is less inspiring if the guy screams in pain the whole time, because then nobody
True.
wants to watch.
Right, yeah. I mean, if the same guy doing the same thing, screaming like he's being tortured, that would be sick.
I mean, it'd be the same for David Blaine. Like when you
Yeah.
watch the David stuff, it's like if you were putting an ice pick through his arm and he was just like if he was just sobbing the whole time, you'd be like, I don't want to watch this.
I wouldn't do it.
It's
I'd
like
I'd stop.
It says in 1948 he was alleged he was instructed by voices to eat a steel needle, and 2 days later, it was surgically removed. I don't know. I think he got cocky.
It's fair to say that he might have some
Very
weird things
confusing.
going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was probably
So-
trying to kill himself and couldn't believe kept surviving.
Yeah, he was laying on a bed. I guess they didn't know he was dead, and then they finally got a doctor to check him. Turns out he'd already been dead for a day. Yeah, it sounds a little.
Jesus Christ.
We need like 3 more research interns like googling his whole scene as fast as they can, because they're like, wait, none of that makes any sense.
And this was because of swallowing a needle.
Said he thought he had guardian angels. He said he was telepathic. He could heal people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't heal himself very well. Or maybe he did. That's how he survived so many, being impaled so many times.
I guess you can just do it, though. It can be done, because they're fairly small holes, although they do go through the length of your entire body.
You
Yeah.
just think you'd get
Or the
infected.
width.
I think that's part
Right.
of what that video was him proving to doctors that it wasn't all fake, and that's because that's what it says. He proved to Zurich doctors that his act wasn't based on fakery. That's I don't know.
Why do I get so uncomfortable just talking about this? I'm breathing heavy. I'm like, oof.
Maybe you need to practice a little bit. You have somebody start putting needles through like little parts of your arm, Like,
There's just something weird about people that are willingly hurting themselves and causing themselves pain.
no, I kind of agree with that.
Yeah.
I do find it slightly. But David, very well-adjusted man, it seems.
Very
but
well-adjusted.
very friendly,
Super
like nice
friendly.
guy. Like,
And his card tricks are legitimately
Dude.
mind-blowing.
Dude, so fun fact about his card tricks. I don't know if so he took me to lunch once and like did a whole thing of card tricks, and I was totally I love magic and I think it's cool, and I like, obviously they're all tricks, but I was like, this is incredible. The execution's incredible. I was totally into it. I was super impressed. And then at the time I was dating this girl in New York really briefly, and a couple days later we all went to the climbing gym together because like I said, I was kind of encouraging him to like do some climbing thing. And then we went to lunch again, and he basically did the same set of card tricks for this girl that I was dating, but having already climbed for like an hour or two. And it was funny because his execution in the card tricks was noticeably worse for me. I could tell that he was like doing all his tricks worse once his arms were like totally wrecked from climbing for 2 hours. Like basically his fingers and his forearms were totally wrecked. And that actually made me appreciate how difficult the tricks are even more. Because I was like, oh, wow, like if your fingertips hurt and your muscles are wrecked and it's hard for you to hold your arms steady, then it's like very hard to fan the deck, evenly and to like pick cards properly. And it made me appreciate just how much skill is involved in what he was doing. I was like, oh, dude, it's pretty cool. Basically to see somebody do something at their peak and then when they're also totally wrecked, and then to see kind of the overlap, you're like, oh, this is actually quite hard. Like what he's doing is a challenge,
You know what it's like? He's like, he's got the fine motor skills that we have for tying our own shoes.
Totally, but for a
he's-
deck of cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he can just cut to the 27th card or whatever,
Right.
you know, and he's like, let me just cut this deck. And he's like, oh, there's card number 24. And,
And
you're
he
like,
really
what?
can do that.
Yeah,
Like,
when
he's
he's
done
in
it
practice.
so many times that he has that. You know that, because there is that feeling that you have when you tie your shoe where your hands just communicate so fluidly. You know, like that's like what people strive for in jiu-jitsu. In jiu-jitsu, you strive, like that's actually what my coach, Eddie Bravo, he uses that as an example. That when you tie your shoe, you don't think about tying your shoe, you just tie your shoe. And in a certain situation, you'll flow into a technique. Like a technique will happen, and it'll happen, and because your repetitions, you've hit them so many times, it'll just be so fluid. And so for David, it's got to be like that, but with like the very tips of his fingers.
I know. For somebody like me with, you know, very callous, I can't even imagine feeling anything that well.
Right,
Like honestly,
right.
decks of cards, I just like crumple them all together. I'm just shoving them. Like, is it shuffled? You know, like I can't even manipulate them that well.
Yeah, I would imagine, right? Like your hands have to be like super rough, right?
Yeah, normally pretty rough, and then also just really calloused on the tips. I mean, often, you know, I can pick up like hot things and like not really notice it quite the same way, or you know, things like that.
Of course.
I mean, if you're grabbing very coarse rock all the time, it's like you have to wind up with really callous fingertips.
Of course, yeah.
But so then something like manipulating the edge of a card, it's like I can't even imagine feeling it.
Catch new episodes of the Joe Rogan Experience for free only on Spotify. Watch back catalog JRE videos on Spotify, including clips. Easily, seamlessly switch between video and audio experience. On Spotify, you can listen to the JRE in the background while using other apps and can download episodes to save on data cost, all for free. Spotify is absolutely free. You don't have to have a premium account to watch new JRE episodes. You just need to search for the JRE on your Spotify app. Go to Spotify now to get this full episode of the Joe Rogan Experience.